Hey guys, Cuchallain here, and this is the final episodic review I'm going to do for Danganronpa 3. That kind of sucks. I mean, we got Danganronpa 2.5 coming up, but I'm going to miss Danganronpa 3 because it was a ton of fun. Honestly, it was my best anime of the season. It was probably one of my best anime of all time. Like, definitely not in the top 10, but probably in, like, the top 30. Keep in mind, I've watched a lot of anime. But the thing is, I know a lot of people are going to be instantly hitting that comment section and screaming their heads off. But the plot inconsistencies, it was so stupid. And I kind of agree with you. I mean, objectively, there are a lot of things that are wrong with this series, and I see them as well, believe me. I mean, there are so many inconsistencies, there are so many problems, and there are a lot of things that people are just taking too seriously. But no, I do understand that feeling of being disappointed. I was certainly disappointed when it came to the killing game, to Tengen's whole reasoning behind it. I can't really see much reason behind it. It just seems like he wanted Ryota to use his brainwashing technology on the world, and for that he killed off so many good people. I mean, a couple of fucked up people. Ruruka probably could have used a ton of therapy. Juzo, Munakata and Chisa all needed some serious help in their lives. I mean, Chisa was full on despair. Munakata was halfway there. And Sakakura was, wallowing in despair as well. Getting to the point where he was willing to kill Naegi and was just so happy to get given that go-ahead. Because he was so pissed off at himself letting Junko go. So, I mean, the Future Foundation needed some serious therapy, but I mean, then there were some really sweet people in there too. Like Seiko, like Bandai, like Kizakura. These were all characters who didn't deserve to die, but ultimately did. I mean, if it weren't for Seiko, spoiler alert, Kirigiri wouldn't be alive. Seiko, in the middle of the killing game, managed to create something that would slow down the effects of the toxin so that she could somehow save people. And the fact that Kirigiri knew this... I mean, I understand why she couldn't tell anyone. But the fact that she knew this and, kept it to herself, kept herself alive by using it, but ultimately, like, she might have ended up helping people if she'd told everyone, hey guys, this will stop the flow of the poison. We'll all be able to use our NG codes and shit. But I do understand why she did that. That one at least has the explanation that Naegi needed to feel that loss of a loved one to be on the same kind of wavelength of Munakata and explain how you have to have hope and you can't just give in to despair because of that. Even though Munakata had it a lot rougher, really. Finding out that she was despair the whole time and she'd been leading him into despair and shit, man. So yeah, I definitely see the problems with this series is what I'm saying. There are a ton of them. But we're going to bring those up tomorrow at 5 PM EST, 10 PM GMT. We're going to do a big live event with me, Son Wukong, Sloan the Female Otaku, Omega Volwins, Tai Chi-Chin, and Super High School Level Blaze. And that's why I want to end talking about the bad stuff from the whole series there. Because we are going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about the very good parts from the whole series there. I mean, one thing that I really liked about the whole series is the way it's moved us into that V3 kind of mindset. Where we've gotten away from this, everybody's either hope or despair kind of mentality and gone into that everybody has hope and despair inside them mentality. Where you don't just have to be good all the time or bad all the time. There are shades of grey. I mean, they were getting more and more into that side of the storyline as Danganronpa 3 went on. And before, it was pretty clear cut, so I am glad that they moved into this. Especially since that sets us up for V3 so well, where we're going to be Kaede doing the normal class trial thing, but also using lie bullets and lying to get our way through things, not necessarily being good all the time. Possibly twisting the truth and fucking around with people just to make sure our side of the debate wins. So, yeah, I like that kind of mindset. And I'm glad they set us up for that. It moves us forward into that kind of future. And that was a good thing that they brought up as well. I mean, this now is me moving into just the episode. They came together. We had Hajime and Naegi together talking about the future. Moving towards a brighter future, taking those steps forward. The ultimate themes that were in Danganronpa 1 and 2. I mean, Danganronpa 1 was all about keeping your hopes up, moving forward, pressing forward even when it looks like there's darkness ahead of you. keeping that hope inside of your heart. Danganronpa 2 took that idea and then also really added to the theme of being able to choose your own future. I mean, Hajime as a character realized as it went on that he had no talent, but there was this general theme going on in Danganronpa 2 about how if you don't have talent, at least you aren't bound to a destiny. Whereas the students with talent always felt like they had to be who they were. Like you had them having to be the ultimate martial artist, the ultimate cook, the ultimate this or that. They had to live with that. They had to, no matter what, continue down that path. Whereas Hajime was able to choose the future that he wanted. And at the end of Danganronpa 2, he ultimately used that power inside him. That power that Chiaki said was so important that he could choose to do anything. And really secure the future that he wanted. Where they didn't listen to Junko, they didn't listen to Naegi. They chose their own future, broke out of the program, and decided, you know what, we'll find our own way to do things. And that's what ultimately led to this episode, where we had all the remnants of despair coming in, cured of their despair, looking so happy, looking so cool. Hajime with his heterochromia, and they were being beasts in this episode, but also working with the remaining survivors from Class 78. I mean, the thing was, really, Class 77 just saved Class 78, and that was for a good reason. I mean, we find out that it was 77th Class that ended up pulling Tagami out of the rubble and helping Hagakure, and then they went and found Ryota, and they dealt with all of that while Naegi just listened from the outside, because Naegi trusted them. And that's something that Naegi's always done. That's one of the best things about Naegi. He doesn't just get in the way of everything and try to be the hero. He believes in other people doing their own thing. When he put the students into the Neo World program knowing that they were ultimate despair, he had that hope and faith that they'd find a way to get through it. That they'd find a way to be happy at the end. Even though Izuru had his own agenda going when he went into the game, where he wanted to see who would win between hope and despair. Ultimately, hope won, and he got his memories of being Hajime Hinata back. He remembered everything about Chiaki, who had made him cry even when he didn't have emotions. So that was powerful. That was powerful as all hell. The idea that Chiaki gave her life in Zetsubo-Hen, wanting, no matter what, to have more time with her friends, to create more hope, to make more memories. And then at the end of this episode, we had AI Chiaki essentially saying she'd accomplished that. Even though, like, she made that clear distinction herself that we've all had to make as this went on as well. The AI Chiaki that we knew in Danganronpa 2 was not the same as the real, living Chiaki Nanami. She said that they were two different people, but her, as the AI Chiaki, also had a little bit of that feeling of wanting to make more memories with her friends, and she was able to do that. That's why she ultimately fell in love with them and wanted to tell everyone about the Neo World program and support them no matter what. Man. So that was interesting. That's actually one of the plot holes that they kind of wrapped up a little bit. I mean, I know a lot of people, me included, were very disappointed at what they did with the Neo World program, where they didn't really explain anything about it, which I really wanted them to. As soon as we saw Miyaya Gekugahara come into the storyline, and it was like, she's the ultimate therapist, she helped design the Neo World program, I was like, yes, we're finally going to get some explanation on this. We'll probably see Nanami in real life hanging out with Chihiro, and that's how he built her AI. Turns out that's not how he built her AI. He probably never met Chiaki Nanami, but he did help design the Neo World program. Like, that's the thing. A lot of people have said this is a retcon, but it's really not. The story of the Neo World program was always that people used the work created by Matsuda and Chihiro and Miyaya Gekugahara. They worked on it in the Future Foundation to create the Neo World program. And even the story about Chiaki Nanami and Usami was always that they were always there. There were always going to be monitors in the game, but Alter Ego edited them. He created what people perceived them as. That was always a part of the game. They said that when they were explaining everything. The Alter Ego put them together in the way they were as the game started. And so in this episode, we got that confirmation that Alter Ego actually used Class 77's memories to create Chiaki Nanami and to create Usami. And so I like that. It does wrap everything up for me. It makes perfect sense to me. We're never going to see how the Neo World program was created. We're never going to see any of them working on it. We just know how it was put together, and that if anybody else had gone into the Neo World program, AI Chiaki would have never existed. It would have created some other avatar, a random jumble from people's memories that seems like a suitable idea for someone who would listen to your problems and observe and try to help. Whereas with Class 77, because they all had the exact same idea of someone they wanted to see, someone who listened and created hope in their hearts, it just straight up created Chiaki Nanami. And it was able to create a bit of her personality, not all of it. I mean, Chiaki Nanami in real life was so much more emotional, so much more intelligent. But Chiaki in the game was just straight up ultimate gamer, really chill, really ditzy, falls asleep all the time. So, you know, she was cool. I like both the Chiakis, and it was nice seeing AI Chiaki essentially thank Hajime and say goodbye to him, especially since Hajime was still walking around with that hair clip for like years after the real Chiaki's death, man. And I like to think that my theory about Usami being based off of their memories of Chisa is real as well. I mean, knowing that Alter Ego created Chiaki 100% from Chiaki's memories in the Class 77, and then also having to create a teacher at that point, like she edited Usami into what she was as well. So I'm thinking Alter Ego may have also taken their memories of the idea of a teacher and essentially built the idea of Chisa into Monami. Especially since through Danganronpa 2, like, they go through the exact same arc that Monami had, like, alongside Chisa. Because we have Monokuma meet Monami, turn her into Monami from Usami. So it's like that brainwashing of Chisa, trying to take her over to that side. It's all very symbolic, and I like it. And it's also that ultimate idea that in the end, Usami comes back as herself and manages to defeat Junko, aka Monokuma. And at the end of the last episode, we had Junko and Chisa sitting there in the Death Theater talking about this ending and how it could be a sad ending. But then Chisa stood up and was like, no, this is just the end to the future side. Now Hope side really begins. And in the end, it was Chisa who brought the whole class together, who made sure that Chiaki joined in with the class as well, despite her being so reserved, that they ended up creating that bond and loving Chiaki so much and getting that hope, that idea of hope so strongly bound to them, creating those hope memories. That was all thanks to Chisa. So in the end, Chisa bringing everyone together, starting that whole idea, just defeated Junko. She couldn't overpower that in the end. She managed to break their spirits for a while, but once they had their memories back of Chiaki, that was it. They were good. So yeah, there are some things that were added to in this episode as well. I just wanted to throw that out there. Now for the hype, because goddamn, Class 77 coming in was insane. I mean, they were using all of their ultimate talents to take out that weird ex-ultimate task force, which I'm guessing Munakata pulled together, which was then brainwashed, unfortunately, by Ryota and used for the power of evil. But yeah, Class 77 just destroyed them. Everywhere you looked, Peko was dropping people, Teru Teru was feeding Akane, who then wrecked someone. We had Mikan stab one in the butt with a syringe. Save goddamn Hiyoko as well, which I really liked, because then Hiyoko got up and actually thanked her, which is so much character growth. I mean, Hiyoko, even when Mikan done nice things, she would often just take the piss out of her, but you knew what she was doing, because Hiyoko's just that kind of personality. She's like an extreme tsundere. Even while she's being mean, you know she kind of loves you anyway, or she wouldn't spend time with her. So that was greatness. There was so much fan service. We had the Peko Hiko going in, where Fuyuhiko appeared and talked about how she's much better with the Shinai than a real sword, and man, Kazuichi using the mini mechanidais as little bombs, and then Sonya actually acknowledging him for once, man, that must have made his day. And Gundam just being such a beast. I can't believe his enemy tried to send a falcon at him. That was just a dumb idea. The ultimate tamer, and you're going to try to use an animal against him. He might as well have just ran away and just let one of the other task force members try to take out Gundam, because that was just not going to work. So yeah, that was all amazing. Seeing Hajime just walk through enemies. I mean, he had like 5 major task force members against him and then a bunch of normal soldiers from the Future Foundation behind that, and he just casually strolled up, walking like a boss towards the door, smacked them all out of the way. I have no idea how he ripped that door open, but he did. I like to think he just did it with his bare hands somehow. Though most likely he used some form of technology, and because, you know, he's got all the ultimate talents. He could have done anything to open that door, but it was just so beastly. And then there was that moment when they managed to talk Ryota down. Like, that was really powerful as well. I mean, Ryota, as it turned out, was still just running away from his problems in the past. He was still refusing to admit how much he was involved in it. He was trying to erase that part of his past rather than actually accept it and atone for it. And there was this big discussion between all of Class 77, who had become the remnants of despair, who had their memories of doing horrible things and were trying to move on from that and just be good in the world again. I mean, that's another thing that actually annoys me when people say that Class 77 got off scot-free. You got to remember, they remember all of their memories of being remnants of despair. So we know the kind of things that they've done, gunning down random people, killing their own parents. One of them had sex with Junko's dead body. Or if you believe that other side, Mikan possibly has Junko's womb inside her right now. Komaeda woke up with Junko's arm attached to him, realizing that he'd gone against his ridiculously insane doctrine of loving hope more than despair. He'd started trying to create despair to have hope overcome it instead. That's what's more interesting to me as well. We're getting that Nagito 2.5, Nagito and the Destroyer of the World OVA, that's going to come out with the V3 Special Edition. So it's going to be this general idea of Nagito waking up. And from the way they describe it, it sounds like some of the theories about Nagito waking up early may be true as well. That he woke up when he died in the game. Because it talks about Nagito waking up and exploring the world around him. Plus he's now shown up with that black and white Monokuma style robot hand rather than Junko's hand. So we're going to get some explanation on that and maybe see how he embraced the world. How he took to the idea of all the darkness and despair he'd created. But yeah, I really liked that when they were talking to Ryota about atonement and how it's not to be forgiven by others, it's just to embrace your own self. Be able to look at yourself in the mirror again. I mean, that was a large part of the end of Danganronpa 2 as well. They were kind of ignoring their own crimes. They didn't want to go back to being ultimate despair. They were scared of it, but ultimately they decided to for the sake of the rest of the world. That's how they woke up, and somehow Izuru managed to wake everyone up because he's a beast. And do it in record goddamn time as well. It's only been 2 to 3 days since the end of Danganronpa 2, and here's the 77th class roll again. Oh man, so that was brilliant. Like I said, the fan service was intense, especially all the Danganronpa 2 music that was played. Man, we got just about every theme. We even got the song we got right at the end when Hajime was doing his monologue in Danganronpa 2. We had that while Ryota was finally starting to listen to everyone. And man, Ryota got some good moments in this. The Ultimate Imposter, he constantly looked at the Ultimate Imposter and looked to him for confirmation. You could tell that was one of the things that he was most annoyed about in himself. The fact that he'd created that video, led the world to despair was one thing, but the one person that he liked in the world as well, the one person who he trusted and trusted him, he'd let fall to despair, he'd abandoned, he'd run away from the issue, he let Chisa go in by herself. Ultimately, Junko just laughed at him and let him keep running. Probably knowing that he'd do something like this, that he'd go insane himself and create more of this. She may have even thought he'd ultimately fall to despair and become despair himself. That's interesting as well. The idea that Junko let him go and with her ultimate analyst talent said that this was going to be his despair. And ultimately it was him trying to create this world that was pure hope. That was his despair. And it links back to that line that Junko said in the final episode of Zetsubo-Hen as well, where she talked about how a world without despair is just something to despair at as well, because people have no free will. And Hajime reminded Ryota of that as well, dropped the idea that he's really just erasing the past, and that also erases the good parts. I mean, the reason that we feel pain, that we feel despair, is because we've liked something and we've lost it. Hajime brings back the idea of not forgetting the memories of Chiaki, which was just so powerful, man. So yeah, I'm not going to talk about Tengen's involvement in this too much. I'm going to save that for tomorrow's discussion, because I've got some ideas on it. I'm wondering if Tengen might have been a student who had, like, ultimate luck at one point. Because, I mean, there are constant hints throughout the series of things like that, and that's the only way I can explain everything about his plan, man. I mean, the way he managed to get away with it, despite not being so incredible himself. I mean, he had these mad kung fu skills and shit. So unless he either became Izuru 2.0 and really did use the Izuru Kamakura project on himself, or he had ultimate luck. I will talk about my reasons for that in tomorrow's discussion. But yeah, that's the only way I can explain how this all worked out to his favour. And I do like to think of the idea that he wanted Ryota to have this choice. He wanted Class 77 to come back. He wanted Naegi to talk Ryota down. Like, he had all of these contingencies for different types of hope to actually talk down Ryota. So I'm hoping that Tengen hadn't gone completely insane and that he was doing his best to actually bring Ryota back to, like, the good side and to stop him from finally running away. Oh, man. But, you know, it could just be he was a crazy old man. That's what I mean about this series. It did have a lot of flaws to the point where it doesn't really matter to me about Tengen's plan anymore. Because it just wasn't that interesting. It could have been much more interesting with, like, my Remnants of Hope idea or anything else like that. Oh, God. But, yeah. Like I said, it was a good ending. Moments were incredible. Komaeda meeting Naegi, knocking Mikan away. And I mean, that's a little part of his hope power as well, when you think about it. Because Mikan was about to tell Naegi, oh, by the way, I saved Kirigiri. And that would have been like a nice little moment, but it wouldn't have been the ultimate hope. Instead, Nagito knocked Mikan out of the way. She never got to tell Naegi. Nagito got his moment of fanboying over his Kohai with the ultimate lucky talent who became the ultimate hope, which he always wanted to do himself. And then we also got the general reveal of Kirigiri appearing much later, having it a surprise for Naegi, that hope overflowing in his heart. And then the strange ending. I mean, I'm really surprised that Naegi decided to rebuild Hope's Peak Academy. I'm sure he might have changed the name, but just the idea of rebuilding it, becoming the headmaster. I mean, with all the badness that came from it. This was something that always weirded me out about the Danganronpa story. They did say that Hope's Peak Academy was this beacon of hope, that the world was better because of it, because they knew these ultimates existed and went out into the world. And then we got the story of Danganronpa 2 and Hajime and the reserve course, who was so tortured by the idea of the ultimates. Everybody, like, feeling that pain of the elitists being way above them. I mean, they continued that into Danganronpa 3 as well, where we had Sakakura beat the shit out of Hajime and tell him he was just goldfish poop and he shouldn't associate himself with the ultimates who are so far above him. He should just be a cog in a machine. And they never really explain how Naegi's going to change the school, or if he's going to just do something else to make it more inclusive. Like, just rebuilding Hope's Peak Academy isn't enough, but I guess that's his idea of hope. I guess it comes back to that general idea of Naegi being chosen as the ultimate lucky student and feeling that happiness, that joy. Even though it turned out to lead him down such a dangerous path, he was still so happy when he was first approaching Hope's Peak. We had the same thing from Hajime. Even though he was just going to the reserve course, he was so happy to be going to Hope's Peak. So I guess it does create hope, even though it does also create conflict. And I guess that's part of it. Like, it creates despair in some people, it creates hope in other people, but in general, it does create all these ultimate students who go out into the world and do a lot of good stuff. And I'm wondering again if that eventually links to V3. If, like the overseas thing, eventually Naegi's Hope's Peak starts opening up other branches, and maybe with this idea that he has of reforming people now, of not giving up on people that have fallen to despair. Maybe he will create the Gifted Inmates Academy. Maybe it'll be like a prison school in the general sense that people with a lot of talent that have gone down the wrong path get brought into it and are supposed to reform, but now somebody's taken it over for evil purposes and created Monokuma just to really fuck with Naegi. Just to get to that point where it's breaking down everything Naegi stood for, everything that he built up, using Monokuma, who they know would hurt Naegi even more. Maybe we will even see Old Man Naegi and Kirigiri at the end. Old woman Kirigiri. Not Old Man Kirigiri. That would be weird. But yeah, we may actually see them in V3 at some point. They may just not be related to the story. I really don't want anyone from the old series as being heavily part of Danganronpa V3. If they get cameos, that's not too bad. I just don't want them actually in the story too heavily. So yeah, to me, this was a good ending. It was powerful. It was emotional. Seeing Ai Chiaki talking to Hajime made me tear up. Seeing all the moments with Class 77 made me cheer, made me happy. Seeing Munakata become such a badass, walk away as like a wandering swordsman. It was cool. I mean, you could tell he felt so much pain. I mean, that's what I don't get when people talk about how there were no consequences in this series either. Munakata lost everyone around him and the Future Foundation. He's now going on a travelling journey of his own where he's carrying the weight of having lost Chisa and not got into Juzo in time and all of that pain that he's carrying. We had Seiko who lost her life in this. All the other Future Foundation members. The idea that Izioi and Rurika, oh man. There was so much pain in this series. I don't get how people say there were no consequences or that everything was happy and everything ended up super happy at the end. The only thing that was a little bit over the top happy was Kirigiri coming back, and even that, like, you can kind of explain it away with the idea that ultimate luck is ultimate bullshit powers. Makoto Naegi has ultimate luck. The idea that Kirigiri brought that bottle could be part of Naegi's ultimate luck, that he needed her to go on eventually. Oh man. So yeah, it was incredibly powerful. I liked it. I liked the themes all coming together. There's a lot of bad plot decisions, which I will be talking about tomorrow, like I said, in the massive discussion. We'll be talking about the connections to V3. We're talking about everything else, but just as a single episode, and this is an episode review, it was amazing. It was so much hype, and the series, episode by episode, week after week, kept me hyped, kept me making new theories, kept me thinking more and more. It had that kind of factor in it, where you just kept coming back and kept hoping for it to get so much better and get so much more interesting. And ultimately, a lot of the parts were a letdown, but the feelings that you got certainly were incredible. And Lurch did an amazing job animating this, animating the 2 seasons at the same time. So I have to give mad props to them as well. So yeah, ultimately, I just want you guys to let me know what you guys thought of this series as a whole in the comment section, what you thought of the episode separate from the series, because we kind of have to make that distinction now, otherwise things get crazy. And tomorrow, like I said, 5 p.m. EST, 10 p.m. GMT, going to be a big group of us discussing it. We're going to be talking to the commenters that come on as well. It's going to be a hell of a lot of fun, so I hope you guys join us for that. And then we'll really talk about the major plot points as a whole and really go into the whole series. I'm sure Volwyn's going to have a lot of fun tearing it to pieces. Meanwhile, you know, there were amazing parts of this, so yeah. Let me know your thoughts. If you enjoyed this review, whack that like button like you mean it. If you haven't already, then subscribe to the channel. There's a new anime season starting today. I'm probably going to bring this out after all of those other reviews. So one anime that I want you guys to really check out if you did like Danganronpa is Mahou Shoujo Ikusei Keikaku, which is done by Studio Lurch again, the same guys that did Danganronpa. And it's about a bunch of magical girls who are being forced to kill each other in a killing game kind of thing to survive and move forward. So it's a bit like Danganronpa meets Madoka Magica. So I think you guys would like it, and it's by Studio Lurch again, so you know they deserve all the support they get because they put a lot of effort into Danganronpa, and you know they're going to be animating the V3 scenes again, so yeah. Let me know your thoughts. I hope you checked that one out. I hope you subscribe to the channel. I'm going to be doing more Danganronpa content. I've still got Dangan Island to finish. Once my capture card comes, I'm going to be doing Danganronpa Ultra Despair Goes as well. So yeah, thank you guys for joining me on this journey for so long through this fandom, this incredible series that it was. And I hope you enjoyed my reviews along the way and my reactions. So yeah, thank you guys, and I will see you next time.